Hi everyone. Today's topic is alveolar surface tension, lung compliance, and airway resistance. Let us discuss it under the following headings: lung pressures, lung compliance, work of breathing, surfactant, and surface tension. So, before going into the proper topic, let us know the pressures. There are three pressures that are important in the ventilation. First one is the atmosphere pressure. So this pressure is present in the atmosphere. So the pressure exerted by the weight of the gas in the atmosphere on the objects on the Earth's surface. So that is 760 milliliter of mercury. That is at the sea level. Next one is the intra-alveolar pressure, the pressure within the alveoli. So this pressure is equilibrated with the atmospheric pressure. Then the third pressure is the intrapleural pressure. So the pressure inside the pleural sac. So the pressure exerted outside the lung within the thoracic cavity. Usually that will be less than the atmospheric pressure. That is only 756 milliliter of mercury, and that is lesser than the atmospheric pressure. So these are the three important pressure that you have to know. The next pressure that you have to know is the transmural pressure or the transpulmonary pressure. So here is the transmural pressure gradient across the lung wall, that is between the alveoli and the pleura. So it is intra-alveolar pressure minus intrapleural pressure. So that's it. So the another one is transmural pressure gradient across the thoracic wall. So here it is the atmospheric pressure minus the intrapleural pressure. So you have to know the difference between the transmural pressure gradient across the lung wall and the thoracic wall. Let us discuss about the pleural pressure and its changes during the respiration, that is inspiration and the respiration. So we have discussed that what is pleural pressure. It is the pressure of the fluid in the thin space between the lung and the chest wall pleura. So as this area is normally um, have a slight suction, which means that it will be having slightly a negative pressure. So the normal pleural pressure at the beginning of inspiration is, here you can see, it is minus 5 centimeter of water. So which is the amount of suction required to hold the lungs open to their resting level. So then during the normal inspiration, so the expansion of the chest gauge pulls outward on the lungs with greater force and creates more negative pressure to an average of minus 7.5 centimeter of water. Then moving on to the alveolar pressure. So alveolar pressure is the pressure of the air inside the lung alveoli. So when the is open and no air is flowing into out of the lungs, the pressures in all parts of the respiratory tree up to the alveoli or they are equal to the atmospheric pressure. So this is considered to be the zero reference pressure in the airways, that is 0 centimeter water pressure. So to cause the inward flow of air into the alveoli during inspiration, the pressure in the alveoli must fall to a slightly below the atmospheric pressure. So during the normal inspiration, the alveolar pressure decreases to about minus 1 centimeter of water. This slight negative pressure is enough to pull 500 ml of air into the lungs in the 2 seconds that is required for normal inspiration. Then during expiration, what happens is the alveolar pressure rises to about 1 centimeter of water, and these forces the 500 ml of inspired air out of the lungs during the 2 to 3 seconds of the expiration. So this is what that happens inside the alveoli um, during inspiration and expiration. Coming to the transpulmonary pressure or transmural pressure, that is the difference between the alveolar pressure and the pleural pressure. Here it is. That is the difference. So it is the measure of the elastic forces in the lung that can collapse the lungs at each instant of respiration. So this is also called as a recoil pressure. Here the thoracic gauge, so that has the tendency to expand. So that is because of the elastic nature of the ribs, muscles, that is intercostal muscles and the tendons around it. So because of that, it has the tendency to expand. So whereas the lungs inside the thoracic cage, it has the tendency to collapse. So thoracic cage has a tendency to expand and lung has a tendency to collapse. So this tendency to collapse is mainly because of the elastic tissues such as the smooth muscles and the elastic and the collagen fibers in the lung parenchyma cells. And then the alveolar surface tension plays a very important role. So the 2/3 of the elastic forces is maintained in the lungs because of the alveolar surface tension. So this alveolar surface tension is lowered mainly because of the surfactant that we will discuss later. And then the elastic forces. So these forces are determined by the elastin and also the collagen. So this is the collagen fibers and these are the elastin. So the deflated lungs are when the fibers are contracted and you can see the elastin, they will be kinked. And then inflated lung, so these fibers are stretched and there will be unkinked, exerting more elastic force will be there. Moving on to the compliance of the lung. So it is the measure of stretch ability and distensibility of the lung. So change in lung volume per unit change in the airway pressure. So it is expressed in liters per centimeter of water. So for lungs, the pressure gradient is the change in the alveolar to the intrapleural pressure gradient. So it is 0.2 liters per centimeter of water. For thorax, the pressure difference is the change in the atmospheric pressure to the intrapleural pressure gradient, that is also 0.2 liters per centimeter of water. For lungs and thorax, the pressure gradient is a change in the alveolar to atmospheric pressure, which is zero point 0.1 liter per centimeter of water. So here you can see the graph of the compliance curve, the relationship between the pressure volume curve. So this curve you can see it is different during inspiration and expiration. So but at identical intrapleural pressure, the volume of the lung is less in inspiratory phase than in the expiratory phase. So this type of curve is called as hysteresis curve. So the difference in the distensibility of the lung between the inspiratory and the expiratory phase, that accounts for the hysteresis loop of the compliance. So if the lungs had been a perfectly elastic structure, then this relationship between the pressure volume would have been a linear and a straight line, so thus forming this compliance line. So but the line is curved during inspiration and expiration, that is because of the two resistance that we have. So that is because of the viscous resistance and also the airway resistance. So these are the two main reasons why this curve is not linear and it is having a hysteresis loop. So why this curve formed the hysteresis loop? So the lungs are not perfect elastic structure and they don't follow the Hooke's law, that is length is directly proportional to force within the elastic limit. Here curved lines are due to the viscous resistance in the lung and also the airway resistance. Compliance of the lungs occurs due to the elastic forces. So the elastic forces of the lung itself accounts for 1/3 of the total elastic forces. So the elastic force caused by the surface tension, that is alveolar surface tension, of the fluid that lines the inside wall of alveoli and other air passages. That is called as the surfactant. So that is the main responsible for the maintenance of the elastic forces. So that accounts for around two-third. So two-third is by the surfactant and only one-third is by the lung parenchyma. Complaints there are static and specific or dynamic. So static complaints. So the static complaints of any system is dependent on its size. So the lung compliance depends on the amount of functional lung tissues. So the static compliance is not a good measure of absolute distensibility of the lung. So the dynamic compliance or the specific compliance is the compliance of the lung at relaxation volume, that is the functional residual volume. So it is a measure of absolute distensibility of the structure. So the static compliance measured at the end of inspiration when there is no airflow. So this indicates only the distensibility of lung alone due to elastic tissues. Whereas dynamic compliance, so both volumes and pressures are measured when airflow is zero, but they are also measured at different respiratory frequency. So this specific or dynamic compliance is the measure of absolute distensibility. Specific compliance, so compliance is corrected for the lung volume at which it is measured. Compliance is expressed in terms of functional residual capacity. So specific compliance is equal to the lung compliance divided by functional residual capacity. Here you can see the normal compliance and the specific compliance. So if the patient lung compliance is 0.2 liters per centimeter of water, then both lungs together are able to expand 0.2 liter for each centimeter of water change in the pleural pressure. Assuming equal compliance in both the lungs, each lung will take up 0.1 liter of gas. If the patient undergoes a pneumectomy, the compliance measured will be only 0.1 liter. So in spite of the fact that distensibility of the remaining lung is normal, so clinically, so we use the specific compliance to measure the distensibility. Affecting only the lung compliance, the phase of the respiratory cycle. So compliance is slightly greater when measured during the deflation than when measured during the inflation. So compliance decreases with the inflation of the lung as more pressure is required to distend the already distended lung. Next is the effect of gravity. So in the standing position, the intrapleural pressure is more negative. So that is minus 7 millimeter of mercury at the apex when compared to the basis, that is minus 2 millimeter of mercury. So the compliance is less at the apex of the lung. So the next one is the lung volume. So and the individual with only one lung has approximately half the change in the lung volume for a given change in the pressure gradient. So the finally surface tension. So if surface tension is high, so as that happens in the absence of surfactant, so more pressure is needed to distend the lung. So the compliance is decreased here. So let us discuss the compliance of lung filled with air and filled with the saline. So they have removed the lungs from the animal, that was cat, on which they did. So and they have distended it with the air to in incremental volume to maximum. So while measuring the intrapleural pressure each time. So they have repeated the experiment during successive deflation of the lung also. So they have inflated and then deflated with the air. So that's how they have got this graph. So the graph between the intrapulmonary pressure and the volume, so that measures both the components. So that is the tissue elasticity and also the alveoli surface tension. So that's why here you can see the how the compliance is maintained with the hysteresis loop. Now again the whole experiment is repeated now with the saline. They have filled it with the they have inflated and also deflated with the saline. So as the saline reduces the surface tension, so to nearly zero, so the lung, um, the curve obtained. So with the saline, it measures only the elasticity, the tissue elasticity, and not the surface tension. So the curve obtained during the saline, or you can see they are virtually identical. The whole curve shifts to left of the first curve, and since the surface tension decreases to nearly zero, which opposes the expansion of the lungs during inspiration. So the difference between these two curves measures the elasticity due to the surface tension. So as the surface tension is low, so when the alveoli are smaller. So the causes for the lung compliance to increase and decrease. So decreased lung compliance happens in case of scarring or fibrosis of the lung after a tuberculosis infection, silicosis, so destruction of the functional lung tissue. So after a major damage, it will become harder and the compliance of the lung gets reduced. So increased compliance, so in the elder people and also in the emphysematic people, those who are having more air inside the lung. So when there is an obstructive lung disease, that is those who are having difficulty in expiration, like in bronchial asthma, COPD, so they will be having more air inside the alveoli, so that forms the emphysema. Work of breathing. So it is a work done by the respiratory muscles to move the air into the lungs. So during normal quiet breathing, all the respiratory muscles contract. So the contraction occurs during the inspiration. So, but during expiration, it is a passive process. So that is the expiration happens by the elastic recoiling. So under resting conditions, the respiratory muscles normally work to cause the inspiration, but for expiration, it will not work. And the energy required for the respiration, so the total work of the quiet breathing ranges from zero point 0.3 to 0.8 kilogram, but this work of breathing that is increased in many diseases such as emphysema, asthma, and congestive heart failure. So that is as they might be having symptoms like dyspnea and orthopnea. And this energy, so this represents 2 to 3% of the resting oxygen consumption. So the components of the work done during respiration. So this is the work done to overcome. So there are two resistance. One is the elastic resistance. So this accounts for around 65%. So this is the force of elastic recoil exerted by the lungs, elastic fibers, and also the surface tension. So this is against the compliance. And then non-elastic resistance, that accounts for 35%. So 7% from the viscous resistance, that is offered by the non-elastic tissues of the body, and then airway resistance, that is offered by the friction of the gas molecules. Airway resistance, so when the air that moves through the airways, so there will be some resistance to it. So therefore the work done in moving air through the respiratory tract is called as the airway resistance. So extrathoracic, they are 70%, and intrathoracic, they are only 30%. So extrathoracic is more during inspiration and intrathoracic is more during expiration. So this airway resistance, they depend upon the rate of the airflow. So if there is if the rate of the airflow is greater, so there will be greater resistance. The resistance will also be more, and then it also depends on the airway radius. So resistance. So this Poiseuille-Hagen formula. So it says relationship between the flow in a narrow tube, viscosity of the fluid, and radius of the tube. So you can see here the formula. If the radius decreases by half, keeping the other factors constant, the resistance can increase by 16 times. But this may not occur in our body because the diameter of the airway is larger enough, so there is no difficulty in breathing. So resistance is directly proportion to the half of the fourth power of the radius, and it also depends on the length of the airway and also the type of airflow. So according to the Reynolds number, so the airway resistance is more in the turbulent flow than in the laminar flow. So when the this Reynolds number moves to 200 to 400, so the turbulent flow will occur at some branches of the bronchial tree, but that will soon die out. So however, when the Reynolds number exceeds the 2000, as that happens in the blood flow, so there occurs the turbulent flow. So even in a straight line, smooth bronchi and its branches, and the airway resistance increases. And then calculation of the work of breathing. So this is done using the relaxation pressure curve during inspiration and expiration. The work of inflation is calculated by plotting change in the lung volume and intrapleural pressure. Total area represented is proportional to the work done. So total work done during A, C, B, and then D, A. So this is the total work done during the inspiration. So work done. So against the elastic resistances A and 2B and then dA. So this is against the elastic resistance. So this is the curve. So work done against non-elastic resistances A, C, B, and then 2A. So this is non-elastic resistance. So this is the elastic resistance. So we know that elastic resistance is there only during the inspiration, and non-elastic resistance, namely the air resistance and the surface tension resistance provided by the surfactant, they are non-elastic resistance, which mostly happens during the expiration. So expiration, that is a passive passes. So that happens due to elastic recoil and no work done happens during the expiration. Here let us discuss the determinants of the respiratory rate to do a minimal work of breathing. So normally the respiratory rate to do a minimal work of breathing is given here. So the normal respiratory rate is 15 breaths per minute. So here you can see where there is, and this is normal. Here it is the there is increased elastic resistance. Here you can see the respiratory rate is increased to do the work of breathing when there is increased elastic resistance. But when there is increased airflow resistance, as that happens in the obstructive lung disease like bronchial asthma, the respiratory rate is decreased to do the same work of breathing. So this is obstructive disease and this is the respiratory restrictive disease. So pulmonary surfactant. So in 1959, Hervey and Mead, they discovered that the lungs of the premature infants are deficient in the surfactant, which is the main cause of the hyaline membrane disease. So this is a breakthrough, big breakthrough. So after that, so the role of surfactant in many lung diseases, especially the newborns, is doing a wonderful job. Pulmonary surfactant is a mixture of phospholipids, neutral lipids like fatty acids and other proteins. So this lipid surface tension lowering agent of alveoli. So the main function of the surfactant is to decrease the surface tension of the alveoli. So the alveoli might be having more surface tension. So without the surfactant, with the increased surface tension, the alveoli may collapse. So this surfactant reduces the surface tension to maintain the alveoli and be functional. Otherwise, the alveoli will collapse. No diffusion of gases in the alveoli will happen. So it is secreted by the type 2 alveolar cells and it is stored as the lamellar bodies. So it is produced from 28 weeks of gestation and peaks at 35th week of the gestation. So synthesis by the type 2. This is the type 2 alveolar cell, and here you can see this is the type 1 alveolar cell. So this type 2 alveolar cells is where the synthesis of the surfactant happens. So they are secreted by constitutive and regulated by the exocytosis into the fluid lining the alveoli. So this the content of the surfactant dipolymethyl phosphatidyl choline, so that accounts for 62%. It plays a major role in decreasing the surface tension by the formation of monolayer on the alveolar air interface. Here you can see it. And phosphatidyl glycerol, that accounts for only 5%. So that is spreading of surfactant over a large surface. And then other phospholipids, they account for 10%, and neutral lipids like cholesterol and cholesterol esters, they account for 13%, and then protein 8%, and carbohydrate 2%, and then calcium also present in the surfactant in very less number. Surface proteins, so there are four different types of surfactant proteins present. So they has hydrophilic end in contact with the fluid, and hydrophobic tails in contact with the alveolar air. So this is the head and the tail. So there are four types of proteins, surfactant proteins A, B, C, D. Here you can see them, A, B, C, D, four types. So B and C are present mostly in the hydrophobic head, and hydrophilic surfactant proteins, that is A and D, they are mostly present in the hydrophobic tails. So A and D does the job of the absonin, and C and B, it facilitates the spread. So surface tension, water molecules are attracted to one another. So force of surface tension acts in a plane of the air liquid boundary to shrink or minimize the liquid air interface. So in the lungs, what happens is the water tends to attract, forcing air out of the alveoli to bronchi. So the alveoli, they tend to collapse. So surface tension, elastic force. So this elastic contractile force of the entire lungs can make the lung function. So according to the Laplace law, so if two bubbles have same surface tension, the small bubble will have higher pressure. So here you can see the pressure is greater in the smaller bubble, and here the surface tension is reduced by the surfactant. So the pressure is equalized in the large and the small bubbles. So the surface tension is reduced by the surfactant. So without the surface tension, this smaller bubbles cannot handle the high pressure for a longer period of time. So the pressure is equal to 2 surface tension, 2 times of the surface tension divided by the radius. Functions of surfactant. So surfactant reduces the surface tension. So surfactant, by reducing the surface tension, they decreases the tendency of the alveoli to collapse. So it stabilizes the alveolar size and prevents the collapse. So it maintains almost the uniform size of the alveoli. So due to this surfactant, the pulling pressure in the alveoli is reduced, so almost from 18 centimeter of water to 4 centimeter of water. So it prevents the pulmonary edema. So the surface tension is an retracting force which not only pulls the alveolar wall to center of alveolus but also pulls the fluid from the capillaries into the interstitial space surrounding the alveoli and then into the alveoli and then finally leading on to the pulmonary edema. So the surface tension prevents pulmonary edema just by lowering the surface tension. It increases the lung compliance. So by reducing the surface tension, the lung compliance also increases. So it reduces the work of breathing. So we have seen that according to the Laplace law, due to reduction in the surface tension, the mean alveolar radius is increased. So this reduces the transmural pressure that is required to expand the alveoli. So this low surface tension produced by the surfactant, so they also facilitate the reopening of the collapsed alveoli and also the airway. So surfactant can be stimulated by the vagus nerve, thyroid hormone thyroxine, glucocorticoids, insulin, and growth hormone. They are inhibited by hypoxia, breathing pure air, and also smokers. Books to read: Hindu Purana, Genome, G.K. Pal, in Guyton and Hall. Thank you.